happy Tuesday, my friends. It's Tuesday, and it's the second Tuesday of the month, which must mean that it's time for another rabbit hole conversation with myself, Jessica Dugas, and my good friend over here, Mr.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
He's going to play like he's sick today. Got some laryngitis.
No, how's everybody doing this evening? What a great topic we have today, huh? Let's just get right into it.
Welcome to Beyond 2D. Tonight we're beginning our deep dive into the rabbit hole of trust,
Where are
boys
my
and girls.
notes? I need
Trust
notes.
is our topic, and tonight we will be talking about trusting ourselves. Do you have trust in yourself? Do you trust yourself? If so, where do you feel like that trust comes from?
Ooh.
Do you feel like it's sustainable in every situation? Is it dependent on circumstance?
Ooh.
If you do trust yourself, do you trust yourself more than you trust others? Some deep questions we're going to be going into in this topic.
Oh,
Miss
I
Brittany
guess.
is joining us out there, and I would love for you, if you're joining us, to say hello. Let us know where you're joining from and answer today's question. Do you trust yourself?
Answer it so I don't have to.
I have a lot of things
Oh.
that I want to say on this topic. Do you want to start with definitions, or do you want to start with like your overall feeling about where we're going to go with this over the next 4 episodes?
So, if I gave you my overall feeling about trust, oh, this is so hard. This is such a hard subject because I really have an issue with trust, right? And so my issue with trust is so challenging that I don't even care. Like in relationships, I don't care about trust. Like you know how people call about they want loyalty and all these other things. Like trust is not on my list. That's like number 7 maybe.
Hmm. Really?
Yeah, because I just believe that people are gonna do what they want to do, and you have no control. We have no control over people, right?
Mm,
And
right.
so they're gonna do what they want to do. I know that part of the commitment to myself that I discovered was I do what I want to do when I want to do it, and you
Mm,
can't and you can't make me do it unless I'm right. And so that doesn't work in relationships. It works with me, Farron, but when it's other people involved, and when I discovered that, I had to embrace that, but I put that on the shelf after I embraced it. Like, okay, I own that, but I'm not ready to this work for
right.
some other areas. So, yeah, trust to me is as we get into this conversation the next few weeks, um, I'm going to be really honest because I believe that's what we created this show for, right? And so that other people who watch this or who listen, the first thing you got to be willing to do, even in all the conversations that we've had, you have to be willing to tell the truth to yourself. If
Mm,
nobody else,
right.
you have to be able to tell the truth to yourself. And I've been able to give my permission to myself to do that,
Yeah.
to see what's underneath all this stuff that I've been carrying for 40 plus years. Now I'm 53, so I started 13 years ago. So what I've discovered in the last 13 years, um, totally different than who I was the first 40.
Right. Right. Well, and thank God we have the room to grow, and thank God that I'm not the same person that I was 25, 30 years ago.
For real.
Yeah, I'm thankful for that opportunity that we have as humans to grow and learn. I want to say really hi really quickly to Miss Brittany out there. She's got the
Hey.
front row seat. And Miss Lori's out here this evening.
Hey.
She's got some good comments we're going to circle back to, but I want to make sure to get to the definitions first as well.
Okay.
But she said, trust myself more than I trust others, and that comes from past experiences. I'm very guarded. I trust
Mm.
those closest to me, and my circle is small and tight.
Mm.
So, I
And
know a
that's
lot
not
of
always a good thing either.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think no matter the direction we're gonna go with this conversation, there are always those, those lines that I think can easily be crossed into like, okay, like are we too guarded? Are
Yeah.
we too naive? Are we like, I think you could go that direction with pretty much anything. So I'll be excited to dig into that a little bit. But I want to get into a couple of these textbook definitions because you know how I feel about my friend's dictionary and thesaurus.
And the thesaurus.
By the way, I'm very upset because I think my bell is still in a box packed, and I'm like missing my bell this evening. So, all right. Trust, noun. Number one definition: reliance on the integrity, which
Mm.
I find funny. We just talked about that last series.
Yeah, go watch those.
Go watch that. Reliance on the integrity, strength, abilities, surety, etc. of a person or a thing.
I'm sweating.
Confidence. And what one thing I will say about this is that we talked about during the integrity series is that the only integrity you can really count on is the integrity of yourself. So can we
Yeah.
truly trust another person based on this definition of and the integrity that we learned? I mean, we're gonna come back.
Yeah.
Number two,
Please, I'm sweating.
confident expectation of something.
Mm.
Hope.
Oh, there's that word,
Hope
hope.
is another word. Yeah.
Hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm glad that it brought up expectation. I'm going to scroll this down the bottom. These are some of the words that came up from our friends thesaurus: confidence, expectation, faith, hope, assurance, certainty, certitude, conviction, credence, credit, dependence, positiveness, reliance, stock, store, sureness, entrustment, and gospel truth.
Hey.
Uh-oh. But I'm glad that it used the word expectation because I am such a fan of going down the rabbit hole of that word
Mm.
because oh
That might be the
ooh,
next one. That might be the next one
ooh,
after trust is expectations, because that's a tough one too.
yeah, and in the spiritual development community, um, and personal development communities as well. There is a certain book that everybody recommends that I won't say the title of it, but it has four things.
Oh yeah.
You know which one I'm talking? Okay,
Everybody goes. That's like the go-to.
it's like yes. And I have a trigger with I've never okay. Truth here. We could be in truthful.
Okay.
I've never read the book.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm just gonna put that out there. However, it triggers me.
Well, I own it. I have it, and it's still whatever.
Does it trigger you, or are you just not
Yeah, because it's not that's just the surface level of it.
right?
Yeah, it's not that doesn't it doesn't go deep enough.
Yeah. Raise your hand out there if you know what book I'm talking about, so I don't have to say. But there's a certain part in there, in those four things about expectations. Um, and while I appreciate that it can be, I understand what they mean about releasing expectations. However, expectations are something that is a very normal human
Hmm.
reaction.
Hmm.
And I think having expectations can help keep us safe.
Hmm.
It can give us things to work towards. If we don't have something, someone, or are someone that we particularly like, that we have
Hmm.
our expectation can help us work towards that. So I don't think it's an inherently bad thing. And so when the spiritual community wants to take expectations and just chuck it in the trash compactor, I'm
Yeah.
like, hang on, wait a minute,
Yeah.
wait, stop.
It's the context. Like from what you're saying to me, is there's a context of expectations. They're not bad, right? And also there are some expectations that are silent. Like you said, they're
Mm,
just already there as an expectation.
right,
And so if we get into that conversation later, for me, expectations they're negotiable,
right.
right? Even in so because they live in the conversation. So I believe
Going
that,
back to
yeah,
topic one,
yeah, communication.
communication.
It's you can. I believe, and I've done it. That if you are willing to have that conversation about expectations, they're negotiable, and you
Mm,
can really negotiate those. So that person who has those unspoken expectations on you, by you bringing it up and having that conversation, you know what? I might not even want to have a conversation or relationship with you because of your expectations. And at least it gives me the freedom to be like, you know what? I'm not even gonna be able to live up to all of that. Like if that's what you expect, like maybe we should reevaluate where we're going, because if that's what you truly expect
mm,
from me, then I have an opportunity to say I can live up to that or not live up to that.
right, right. Lori said, "What do I look for in a person? Loyalty, integrity, and content of character." And I think loyalty is a similar word as trust. Um,
Yeah, loyalty. You want, see, here's the thing. Even with integrity, my integrity is different from your integrity.
right,
So you
right.
can't even say I'm looking for your integrity. It takes a level of, it takes a conversation. And so I believe the character of that person, you'll start to figure out what kind of person they are.
I think for me, like when I say what I'm looking for in a person, and this may be where Lori's coming from as well. If I say I'm looking for a person that has integrity, I'm looking for someone that has a similar integrity that I have, right? Because I think as humans, we're constantly looking for that match, that
Right.
someone who's going to have that similar energy as us. And so even in loyalty, like the loyalty is such it's another thing that's like it could have so many different levels
Yeah.
to it.
Exactly.
So I might be loyal to you to a point, but then like you may not have that same amount of loyalty towards me. It could be very different. And I think it's the same thing as we're talking about trust today.
Definitely.
um I might trust, like, you and I got into a little bit of a heated conversation last time, because we were talking about when we were talking about integrity and as it has to do with other people.
Mhm.
And when we see someone act out of integrity, when we see someone who our integrity doesn't match,
Mhm.
right? Then our boundaries can change, our thoughts about the person can change, and we might have less trust
Mhm.
for them because we see that happen. So, but whereas someone else could see it happen and be like, no big deal, our level of trust and the importance that we put on trust is a little bit different, I would say.
I I'm gonna say this. If people talk about they want trust and loyalty and all that stuff, that's because they're looking for that for themselves,
Mm,
and they have an issue with that within themselves.
mm,
And so if a person telling me I want loyalty, then my questions are, what does loyalty mean to you? Because obviously you're trying to experience it from me to validate yours, right?
mm,
And so, and I think if you're focused on loyalty, trust in a relationship, you're gonna miss out on all the other great experiences, because I'm keeping tabs on if I can trust you. I'm keeping tabs on, we're keeping score. Sometimes people
yeah,
keep negative score in relationships, right? And so I'm checking my boxes as how many times that you was out of integrity. How many times you weren't loyal to me. So then how are you really having a relationship with that person fully when you're keeping score of these, you know, boundaries that you set up for
mhm,
yourself?
right, right.
I can't see that
Yeah.
having a great relationship.
Yeah, I mean, well, it depends. Like, we had the start of that conversation about boundaries, which I think will end up, maybe not, probably not on today's episode, but eventually we'll go down a little bit more of a rabbit hole where boundaries are concerned, because I do think that, like so many other words, our personal definitions and our personal
Mm,
vision of what that word means and stands for can be very different.
exactly.
And that's where we go again, going back to that first everything that we've ever talked about on this show ties together. Okay, just FYI, if you've missed anything, this is episode 9. You have 8
Yeah,
more to go
yeah,
binge on. Okay.
yeah.
because everything that we've talked about up until this point has tied together beautifully. We couldn't have planned it any
No.
better if we tried. But going back to that other topic of communication, we have to communicate these things to
Yeah.
each other as well. But I think going let's go back to the definite. Do you feel like this is aligned for you? What would you add or take away?
So reliance on the integrity, strength, and ability, etc., of a person or thing. I mean, I could see where it's saying of a person, and so if I'm making it personal to me, then I guess this is today's topic for
Right.
myself. Yeah, I mean, I could see. I mean, we don't walk around and talk about integrity though, right? We don't.
Mm.
People say, "Oh, I'm checking out your integrity." Like I think there's other words that we use: trust,
I'm
loyalty, things
checking
like
out
that.
whether you do what you say you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
That's what,
Underneath all of that. So,
yeah.
yeah, I believe that's. I'm surprised it didn't say the being in there somewhere.
Mm,
So I think you got to be trustworthy too. So it
yeah.
says the reliance. Yeah, I think that's good for now.
Yeah.
That's a start.
And then how do you feel about tying in that word hope?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Hope is something that I can tell you. Hope was my idol
Mm,
in relationships, right? And I didn't really understand that you can have an idol in something like hope. And
right.
so when I was able to look in that in my life about hope, as I say, God delivered me from 38 years of self-loathing because I used His Word. I used my personal development courses, but I filtered all of the stuff that I learned from those courses into the Word of God about what God had to say about hope. And His hope versus my hope and what the world had to say about hope were three different hopes.
Mm,
And my hope was mixed with hope pie in the sky one day, I hope, and then hope like hopelessness. And
right.
so when I gave up my views of hope and I also gave up the world's view of hope, I took on living through God's hope. And
Mm,
that's where I was delivered from that self loathing because I saw that, you know, with all these words that we use, disappointments and the experiences. See, we gotta get into more of not just the words, but the experience that comes with these words.
right.
And when I got my experience of what it felt to be hopeless and in despair and the body sensations around hope, I was like, wow. And I let it go. I was willing to give up my opinion on my views of hope.
Mm,
And so hope for me is is a key, is a door. It's a door in my mind that's filled with all kinds of different
right.
experiences. So yeah, hope. I and so I love the word hope now because I have a better understanding of what it feels like to live in hope that has peace and
Mm.
joy and just being content with life. So yeah, hope is definitely
How does hope differ from trust for you?
because trust still most of us gauge the trust off of somebody else, off of a person. Like when I sat in this chair, I I didn't think about the integrity of this chair because I've sat in this chair 100 times.
Mm,
So now if the chair would have broken after all these years, then my integrity and my trust in this chair would have been thwarted,
right.
right? So imagine we've grown up in our in life experiences and that trust has been broken from years and years ago. So, hey, I collected 40 years of mistrust and distrust and trust
Mm,
from relationships. So the evidence that I have of trust and distrust from myself is mixed.
right. Right.
It's all mixed up. So and the negative trust can show up when it's on its own
Yeah.
in any given moment of the day. I cannot trust a person, and then where is that coming from?
Right.
Like
Right.
somebody said, some past experience that I'm holding on to avoid what being disappointed again, being disappointed in that person again because I'm collecting evidence up against you. of how much I trust you. I'm
Mm.
using words that's like all or none,
Collecting evidence.
collecting evidence.
Collecting evidence, Lord.
So yeah,
I
my
mean,
trust was
yeah,
corrupted.
yeah.
And it's still corrupted.
Yeah, and I mean,
I'm sweating.
I'll say this really quick before we get to Lori's comment here. That I think so much of this, like everything else that we've talked about, there's when you come and we engage in these conversations with us, there is nothing to feel bad about anything that you recognize about yourself in our conversations that we have here, because these are collecting evidence is a very normal human thing to do. We
Yes.
keep like this. Even if we don't write it down on paper, we keep this checklist in our heads of how many times have you screwed me over.
And a body sensation that goes with it too. So
Right.
it reminds me of how it felt.
Yep. Yep.
Mm.
Lori said, I'm a very traditional and old fashioned person. People can live their lives the way they choose. I've got no problem with that. But if I share personal experience with you, I would hope that it would be between us. Gossip is not a game I play. And this is where it kind of ties into trust. So I think a lot of us, I think it goes back to a few things. Number one, um, we need to be having more communication with each other
Mm-hmm.
before we engage in that conversation. If I have something I want to tell Farron that is a personal for me, and I would hope he doesn't tell anybody, before I engage in that conversation, I'm going to say, Farron, I have something that I want to share with you. Can we keep it between us? So I'm already going to communicate that this is my wish. I'm not going to assume, even no matter how close Farhan and I are, I'm not going to assume that this is something that he's going to take to the grave with him. I'm going to put my expectations for our conversation on the table. Farhan, I have something I want to share with you. Can you keep it between us? Okay, so that's going back to communication number one. Then when we go into integrity, boundaries, boundaries. Okay, so if you look, if you know, and my little roundup of trust, I want to say at the end, because I feel like it's going to sort of lead into next week.
Okay.
But part of that is this expectations word that we got
Mm-hmm.
to be good with when it
Yeah.
comes to trust. We
Yeah.
can put all the trust, hope, faith, any of that we want out there, but we have got to be good with knowing that it is not a guarantee,
Yeah.
that the result of that trust is not a guarantee. It's not, you know,
Especially when you put your trust in another person.
right.
And to her comment is child. I'm trying to figure out how I can articulate this.
Yeah.
Put it back because I
I'll put
want
it
to
back.
where
Okay.
she says, you know, but if I share personal experiences with you, I would hope it would be between us.
Yeah.
And this is what I've learned. There's nothing personal. There's nothing personal. Either you don't say it and you take it to the grave, because there's no personal life, and that's what I had to I had to
Yeah.
accept and own. We decompartmentalize our lives into my personal life and my church life and my basketball life and my military. You're still the same person in those. You're the common denominator,
Yeah.
right? And so, is that you gossiping?
Yeah.
So I had, because what I learned, and I didn't understand it when I first took those personal development courses, but at some point my worlds collided.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, and look, if you it's it's I think it's great and wonderful if you find those people that you feel like you can trust, those people that maybe in your book are trustworthy. They won't say a word to anybody. That's just that's their integrity,
Yeah.
right? I think that's great and wonderful, but we have to know. I mean, my point in any of it would be that we have to know that nothing is guaranteed, but then it's in our control. It goes back to that B word we were talking about last week.
Yeah.
If you say something to someone and they go on and they're playing the gossip game, and that's not part of your integrity, then you then have the choice to not say anything to that person
Yeah.
anymore. I mean, it's just it is what it is.
I think gossip the term gossip
Yeah,
is directly connected to integrity, because gossip could really harm.
right.
It can do danger. It puts the gossip is so powerful that if I gossip and say something about you, and then when you meet and you've never met that person, and then you meet that person that I've gossiped you about, you already have a view of how I talked about them, and that
Mm,
person has no chance on how they get to show up in your life, because
mm,
you already got that view that I've put on you
right.
about them, and that's
I
that's
want to, I want to, oh, I want to, I have 800 things I want to say about that, but I want to save it for next week because it has so much more to do with other people.
okay.
So I'm going to try to
Yeah,
remember
let's
to
get back to us, because
mental note.
I gotta play Usher in the background. These are my confessions.
These are my confessions. Okay, anyway, it's it's challenging because we are human beings. Our natural instinct is to confide in someone close, and I think that's a great point to make, and we'll definitely talk more about that next week for sure. So I'm trying to think in this of going back to the definition. I feel like I'm not exactly sure if I always I know I don't always trust myself. And there was another word that was thrown out there. Confident. Confidence is in both of these. And confidence is something that I have
Mm,
struggled with
hmm.
out the gate. I don't think confidence has ever come really natural to me. In fact, when my brother was alive, my brother was a very naturally confident, in your face, you are,
Hmm.
he was who he was, you like it or you don't kind of person, and I was always incredibly jealous of that growing up. I was so jealous that I couldn't just, you know, be who I am without feeling some essence of guilt or not
Right.
belonging or
Yeah. Right
something
there. Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
And so I think the confidence has always been an issue for me. So I can say with certainty that I definitely trust, the level of trust that I have for myself is definitely higher than that I have for other people.
Hmm.
However, it ain't very high.
So let's
It depends on what we're talking about.
yeah, let's set the tone before we go to this half hour point.
Yeah.
And I want to say this to the listeners, and this is from me to y'all. Around trust, you you want to start to think about trust in a percentage,
Mm.
because we talk about trust in a descriptive context, all or none, right? So we have how
Like
we talk
synonymous
about
thinking.
trust, right? So where I found my freedom and trust and start was able to start to peel those layers off was in the cognitive behavior classes. It talked about where my story is exaggerated, and these kind of conversations, and how much did I trust people or whatever that story was. And instead of saying all or none or those words, it said a percentage.
Mm.
So then it made me think about, and then that made me search myself about how much percentage do I trust people and myself? Because now I'm no longer going to use words like I don't trust women, I don't trust people. Like I don't say that anymore, because I'm willing to tell the truth to myself, and I might trust women 85%, right? And at least I could live with that. At least I have a starting point of where I can trust. And I may trust myself, you know, 90% of the time, right? So if I can trust myself 90% of the time, and then I can trust people in my life 80% of the time, 85% of the time, that's pretty good.
Mm.
So then what is the other 15, 20% that's going to keep showing up in my life that I don't trust? Because that's what my brain's going to be looking for. My brain is going to be looking for the other side of that, which is gauging the distrust. So
Mm.
I'm just saying, if you want to find some freedom in your trust conversation, um, percentages, look and see what percent, and be honest. Like really be honest. If you only trust women 65%, or you only trust men 65% of the time, then you could be honest with that, and this at least you have a starting point. you trust the bank teller 99.9% that they're gonna give you your exact change back from when you cash that check. Like, do you sit there and count 1, 10? No, they tell you, oh, here's your amount. When you go to the cashier at the bank at the store, yeah, I might trust the bank teller. I mean, the cashier. 95%. I'm gonna look and see how much coins I got.
still count it afterwards. Right? Yes, so I do.
Do we really trust people 100%? No. No, we don't. If we tell the truth, we don't. So find a percentage that you can be honest with your person and yourself that, hey, you know what? I trust you, but probably only 70% of the time.
Yeah.
And that's not on them. That's on me.
Right.
That's still on me because I have the issue with the 30%, and it's up to me to figure out and have a conversation about why I don't trust that 30%. And maybe it goes back to the past experiences, the disappointments and the broken promises and all that stuff that I've collected over time. That's my 30%. And if I could have a conversation with you about that, guess what? It may go from 70 to 80% because I'm talking about it and I'm freeing myself up with building confidence in this relationship. So percentages, that's what I want to leave the half of the show with.
Yeah, I think it's good to start everybody out with percentage. I will give a part 2 to that when we get back from break. But I will say, as far as percentages are concerned, that dichotomous thinking is some of the most dangerous thinking you can have. Dichotomous thinking is thinking of things in black and white, good or bad, all or nothing.
Yeah.
And it's some of literally the most dangerous thinking we can have. And it's something that can really quickly, piggybacking off of the last topic, pull us out of our integrity, because we'll say things like, oh, I always trust this, or I never trust this, or I've heard people say, I can't ever trust anyone. Do you ever leave your home? My question is this: do you ever leave your home? Because going, and even being in your house, you are trusting that someone built your house well enough that it's not going to fall on your head. So you can't use this all or nothing thinking. And that's all I'll say about percentages. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to have we're going to take a drink. We're going to take a breath. And we're going to come back. We get started with percentages. I'm going to talk about grouping when we come back.
Oh, okay. I'm not coming back after this one.
We'll be right back after this.
Out. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh, man, that shot was cold, man.
I hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn, are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter has sickle cell trait. Do you know the facts that both parents have sickle cell trait? There's a 50% chance the child may have the trait, and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army, 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man. There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org.
Welcome back to Beyond 2D with myself, Jessica Dugas, and the fabulous Sergeant First Class
Oh.
Retired U.S. Army Farron Dozier. We're talking about trust. This is the kickoff to our four-part trust conversation.
4
We talked
parts?
about communication, we talked about integrity, and now we're talking about trust. Today, we're talking about trusting yourself. So if you haven't already answered the question for us in the comments, I see lots of y'all having a sick day out there in the comments. Thank you to Miss Brittany and Lori for participating. If you haven't yet said hi, please do so and let us know the answer to the question. Do you fully trust yourself? Need to know this in the comment. Before we went to break, Farron gave us a little piece of freedom is to start thinking about trust in terms of percentages rather than the dichotomous thinking or black and white, all or nothing, always, never wording that we like to use around trust, among many other things. And I would like to add to this conversation about grouping, because as you were just talking about the percentages, Farron, you were using some of the examples of like, I only trust women, 60%, or we like to group things together. And I think another thing that can really help us when it comes to the trust that we have in evaluating that is when we think about things on an individual basis, whether it's people, whether and as we're talking about ourselves today, because we'll talk about people next episode, as we're talking about ourselves today, talking about experiences, because our experiences that we have are what really play into that percentage in trust, right? That we have for things. So what happens when we stub our toe? Every time I stub my toe, well, because you're taking every single time you've ever stubbed your toe and comparing it, you're putting it all together. Every time I go out with a woman, yep,
Every time.
every time I get a new job, every time, and this is what, every time I have a baby, whatever it is that you want, we lump things together in a group. And when we do that, we don't have we don't give a circumstance or ourselves the opportunity to appropriately prioritize to make that trust level, that percentage, what we want it to be.
Right.
We're doing a disservice because we're going, well, every other time that it's happened, it was this, so I'm going to go ahead and say that I can't trust it again this time.
The word the first one that I looked up and discovered was past mistakes and failures, right? And it says that those erode self-trust. And I like how it said erode, because slowly chips away at your self-trust, which diminishes your experience of yourself. And that was the biggest thing when I discovered that hope, that it wasn't disappointment in people only, it was disappointment in myself first. Like, dang, again, man, like, look at you, like, not in people, it was more of myself. And that was like, so it was heart-wrenching to discover that, but then the freedom I got from where it was coming from. Like, I didn't just live in the discovering of the despair and the hopelessness. It was like, okay, what are you gauging your trust up against?
Right.
Are you gauging up your past experiences? Are you gauging it up of something that you believe in your belief systems? If it's church, if it's education, like, then what are you gauging your trust up against? Because as you were saying, we can't do all or none with people, because people grow, they learn, they develop, they change. And if you have this perception of that person as this is the way they are all the time, then that's how you're going to talk to them. That's how you're going to listen to them. And it'll be challenging to allow that trust to come back or nurture itself back.
Right. I want to touch on Lori's comment here, because she said you build trust you build over time. And it's interesting for me because my daughters and I have had a lot of conversation recently about friendships. And we had, I don't remember what, shocking, my children like to go down rabbit holes as much, but I don't even remember how we got on this conversation, but it was like, how do you know when someone's a friend? Like, they said, my daughter said to me very seriously, how do I know that they're my friend? And I said, it's interesting because there's a lot of people that will give you a list of like ways to know if someone is your friend.
Mhm.
And for me, and maybe to my own detriment, I don't know, but this is the type of person that I am. Someone is my friend until they're not.
Mhm.
Until they've done something. So for me, it's going, that word that you said, erode,
Yeah.
it's a process of that, rather for me. And like I said, I've always identified as being, and not always me, like it's been pointed out to me, like, Jessica, you're so naive,
Mm.
you're so like, what, you're like over trusting, but I think it served me well, because in a world where so many people, it is that, like, you have to earn trust.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You have to do in order to be worthy of.
Exactly.
And I am not that person. I will trust you, but don't let me be in a house without air conditioner.
But actually, like you said, someone said in the comments earlier about their trust, it's guarded. That's how
Yeah.
you know your trust is guarded. That's how you know that there's something in your space about trust that you have to deal with for yourself. And something about the children that you mentioned, we 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 have to be able to tell the truth to our
Mhm.
children.
Yeah.
Everybody's not going to be your friend.
Yep.
Everybody's not going to love you.
Absolutely.
Everybody's not going to care about you. Everybody's not going to want to talk to you. And I think that goes back to that confidence and trust. Because if I have the self confidence and the self love and the self esteem, and you tell me that you don't be my friend no more, guess what? I'm cool.
Yeah.
Would you like to share what happened? Would you like to share why you don't want to be my friend no more? And then let that person express. You know what? You did this. Okay, I own that.
See, you're so much of a better person than me, because I just be like, bye.
No, but I wasn't always like that though. I was a buy too.
See, I will be a bye though, but then I'll sit here and I'll do like the 800 reasons why I think they possibly could have, instead of
Exactly.
having that communication, right?
Exactly. That's the part I learned is we
Yeah.
can go back and, hey, are you willing to talk about what's going on,
Yeah.
right? Because there could be the space of, you know what, I don't want to be your friend no more. I'm okay with that. Can you forgive me? Because I really didn't want our relationship to go like that or end like
Mhm.
that. But if you're done, then I'm gonna ask you for forgiveness, and then you don't have to talk to me no more.
Yeah.
And guess what that does? That forgiveness is planted in that relationship. If they never talk to you again, if your name comes up in a conversation, oh, I don't talk to Fran anymore, but he had the nerve to ask me for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Like they cannot deny not an apology, but forgiveness.
Right. Right.
And that's a totally different dynamic. So
I know as we get into we're going to touch on this more in our third week that we do of this topic, which is trusting again. So when you lose trust, when that percentage goes down with yourself or with other people or with circumstances, how do we sort of bounce back from that? But I want to briefly skim over that today, because I think bouncing back from trusting myself and then something doesn't work out is really challenging for me. I think that's where I see the most challenge for me when it comes to trusting myself, is that trusting again process when I screw up. When I'm like, oh, Jessica, you've got this, and then I fall down, and then I'm like, really?
So can I give you some stuff and you
Yeah,
can,
let's hear
yeah,
about it.
I'm gonna give it to you and then you give it back from the self, right? So the next one that I discovered was the critical or invalidating environments. And the
Mm,
key thing that I saw from that one is the continuous negative feedback or being made to feel inadequate can
yeah,
also erode one's belief in their own capabilities.
there's that erode again.
Yeah. So what do you want to say about that for you?
Read it one more time for me.
So the critical or invalidating environments, and that's the continuous negative feedback or being made to feel inadequate, can erode one's belief in their own capabilities.
Mm. I think in the personal development world, people can be either all or nothing when it comes to the importance of positive self-talk. There's a lot of people that are like, yes, this is all it's about. It's very important. I will say on a personal note for me, as I've dealt with chronic illness over the course of my entire life, it wasn't until I stopped claiming those illnesses with my words,
Mm-hmm.
my ADHD,
Mm.
my fibromyalgia, my cancer, my
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is,
Right.
and really like started um, paying attention to my words and how I say them and being more positive and stuff like that, and not being on that constant negative feedback loop. That was a huge turning point for me
Mm-hmm.
in sort of taking control over my body and
And your mind.
being friends with myself.
Yeah.
But I think that that positive environment, both surrounding us and the environment that we create with our words, is so important when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to trusting ourselves. Because if you don't build yourself up, then how I just don't see how trust is possible.
Yeah. All right. So the next one is traumatic experiences. And the
Mm,
experiencing of traumatic or significant life events can deeply impact self trust. Feelings of powerlessness, self doubt, and a loss of confidence, making it difficult to trust oneself in future situations.
mm,
And I live that one.
yeah, yeah. We've all had some element of trauma, and I think that we'll touch definitely more on this come week 3 as we talk about coming back from things like that. But
Yeah.
going back to what you were talking about before, and something that Lori had mentioned as well,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm trying to recollect my thoughts, they're very scattered. Rein it in,
So
Jessica.
much trust out there.
I know there is so like the rabbit hole has so many little mini tunnels coming off of it. Um, when you trust someone, we were talking about the gossip situation and
Mm.
everything else, when you trust someone and that trust is broken, and we're like, yes, they were wrong in running with your information, right? And not right to do that to people,
Right.
and not right. It can really ruin things.
Yeah.
But it does come back to yourself, like you were talking about, because now it's not just them we're mad at ourselves for
Mm-hmm.
having that trust
Mm-hmm.
to begin with.
Yeah.
And so these traumatic experience that we have, which even sharing something personal and someone running and telling the neighborhood with that information, that's a traumatic
Oh
experience.
yeah, for sure.
So when we have those experiences, now we're going, it's hard not to go down well, I can never trust myself again.
Yeah.
I can never trust myself to know who to talk
Yeah.
to know who to share that information with. And so, yeah, that can definitely be it can suck you down, erode.
And for me, real quick, because I've been in relationships where you tell people your past experiences, and then one day it comes up in an argument, and then they use that past experience against you for a current situation, and you're like, but I didn't tell you that
Hmm.
to bring that up and throw it in my face, right?
Yep.
But I now recognize I felt like that because I had never really dealt with that stuff anyway.
Mm.
So I never owned it. So now I
Right.
own my past. I can talk about it freely, and I can own even your opinion of it,
Right.
right? So if you throw it up in my face again, I'm not triggered by it because I own it and I've dealt with my past.
Yeah.
So, but for some people to trust people in relationships, I don't want to tell you, I don't want to open up to you because you might use it against me.
Mm.
And now how can you have the confidence? How can you be self-expressed in that relationship when you're holding back your own trust?
Right. Right. It goes into one of the questions that I have as we go into next week is if you expect others to trust you. And if you can't trust yourself fully, then how can you expect others to? So anyway, that's a rabbit hole for next week. Really
I got
quickly. Oh, do you have one more?
I got some more for you real quick.
Okay, let's do
So
that
the
real quick first.
external validation dependency, heavily on extend validation or seeking constant approval from others can hinder the development of self trust. Others to look for others to validate it can thwart your decision making, um, uh, question your own judgment, and even help look for external sources or guidance with the
Mm.
lack of self trust.
And overwhelm is a huge source of not being able to um, trust yourself when it comes to certain decision making. Uh, where do you want to go to eat?
I don't know.
Where do you want to go to eat?
I don't know.
Wherever you want to go.
Yeah, where you
Where you how many of us have ever engaged in a conversation of the like with our loved ones?
That's my life. I don't
Um,
know.
when I'm feeling overwhelmed with the amount of choices that there are, I will literally say to my husband, I can't choose. I want you to choose for me. Thank you.
For real. For real. Okay, another one.
Okay.
Uh, the lack of self reflection and awareness.
Mm,
Um, that can contribute to the lack of self trust without taking the time to understand oneself, one's values, thought patterns. Individuals may struggle to develop a strong sense of self trust.
mm.
Self self reflection is so important.
So awareness is everything.
Everything.
I got to give you a short story about this because it's so key to what we're talking about. I trust that no matter what, my youngest child is going to whine no matter what we do anymore. Okay. I just trust that at this point. We were going to spend the entire day because I am a glutton for punishment at SailFest, which is a big event here last Saturday.
Yeah.
And I was so excited about going out. But then I'm like doing the math in my head of how many hours we were going to be away from home.
Yeah.
And so I'm literally torn up about this in my head on the couch. And my daughter's like, what's the matter with you? And I'm like, I am really going back and forth as if we should even go. And my daughter, my youngest daughter, comes up to me and she's like, I want to go. And I said, I know you want to go, but let's have a conversation, Leah. Leah's 7, by the way. Okay. So we're going to
Oh.
keep this in context.
Yeah.
I said, I know you want to go, but can you tell mommy what happens sometimes when we try to go out for the full day? And she says, sometimes I get bored.
Mm.
And I said, okay. And what happens when you get bored, Leah? She said, I whine.
Mm.
And I said, okay, so then if you know that we're going to be out a full day and I'm going to guarantee you're going to have some moments where you're bored, how can we try to rein in the whining? How can we try to not make, so we came up with ideas. We were like, okay, we're going to have food. We're going to have, we're going to make sure that we have something to do. We're, all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And if she ended up whining, we were going to hug. We were going to, we have a plan. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we were out for 11 hours.
Wow.
And there was whining.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot. We were prepared.
Yeah.
But because there was this awareness.
Yes.
She trusted herself that she was going to whine.
Yeah.
But we also made a plan.
That she agreed to. She agreed to
it.
Yes.
And it was good.
Yeah.
But that self-awareness is so key when it comes to trust, because you're not caught off guard.
Yeah.
We could have been out, because I tell you, if we wouldn't have planned the way we did, halfway through the day, it would have been a very different mama situation, and it would have been a very different, I would have let her whine. I probably would have just go to swim with the seals.
Okay, the last one.
Go ahead.
Comparison and social pressures.
Mm.
Constant comparison to others, societal expectations, and the pressure to meet certain standards can erode self-trust. Feeling inadequate in comparison to others and trying to conform to societal norms can lead individuals to question their own abilities and decisions. And that's social media today.
Supposed to, have to, should, based on what you see other people are doing. Uh, yeah, that's a tough one. I recognize that in myself for sure for many years. Um, that I allowed, like if I saw somebody else trust themselves to do something, then I would automatically say that I could trust myself to do it, or not.
Or
It
not.
could
Yeah.
go either way. But like I had a friend earlier who signed up for a half marathon, and the thought of that to me just, unless there's a T-Rex chasing you, okay, it's not
Nothing
happening.
with marathon in it.
But I felt bad for a moment because I do have health goals for myself,
Mm-hmm.
so I allowed myself to feel bad for a moment. I'm like, Jessica, why don't you sign up for no half marathon? Like what, But then I remembered, with my body where it is, I did so good. I walked 2 5Ks in a row at one
Hmm.
point, and that was such a huge accomplishment for me and helped me learn to trust my body again.
Mm.
So if
Mm-hmm.
we're constantly looking at other people's half marathons they're signing up for and not giving ourselves credit for the trust that we had to have to walk that out to the mailbox,
Exactly.
um then
Exactly.
it can be a real, not just a trust downer, but our own, like, that self-confidence.
You could
And
feel stuck in life.
yeah, yeah,
Stuck. Okay.
I
All
like
right,
to
here we
say
go.
I'm in competition with no one, but I'm going on 60 and it took me a while to get there. I posted that on my social media the other day. The only person you should be in competition with is yourself from yesterday. That's it.
I agree, Lori. I agree.
That's it. I want to go back really quickly to this because this will tie into our conversation for next week as well. Don't
Okay.
you find today that text messages can be harmful? It's better to pick up the phone.
Oh yeah.
And that goes back 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Because listen, I have some dry texters in my life. You know who you are. You know who you are. Okay? That's all I'm going to say about
I
that.
text how I think, so it's all bad.
It's a hot mess.
It sounds good in here, but not when it reaches the other device. It's like, what are you talking about?
Lord.
Oh,
But yeah, I mean, so much of that, like, no matter what we're talking about, that goes back to our communication conversation as well.
yeah.
Where, look, if you have something important to say, text is not the way to
Yeah,
go.
that's not the way to
Not 0 stars. Do not recommend, and don't you thumbs up me either.
go.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We're gonna have
Final
a show
thought.
about emojis.
I trust that none of you will be thumbs upping me anytime in the near future. Otherwise, I'm going to have to put a boundary and we're going to have communication. Okay. Final thoughts about trusting yourself, Farron.
I'm gonna leave with my previous conversation. Figure out your percentage of trust. Start there. Don't use words like all or none. Uh, those percentages gave me freedom to even self-discover more about myself and why I had those lacks of trust. So percentages. You're gonna language it in percentage, so you have some freedom to develop and grow those numbers.
I love it.
Yeah.
I wrote this down and I wanted to save it for the end because it does tie in a little bit to what we'll be talking about next episode as well. I wrote, trust for me, like love, peace, happiness, among other things, is a choice.
Mm.
It's like a net that we choose to cast into the ocean. Sometimes we catch something, sometimes we don't.
Mm.
It's never going to be 100%. It's never a guarantee. But if we never cast the net out there, there is a guarantee that we won't catch anything.
Oh God.
If we never trust at all, we never do anything. We'll never grow. We'll never nothing. And we're doing it all the time. Trust is such a subconscious thing for us a lot of the time. Like I said, with the like Farron was talking about with the all or nothing. You can't say you never trust, because if you're alive, you are trusting. You are trusting. Now percentage is another conversation, but you are trusting. There's no
So,
never.
even if it's 2%, it's a percentage.
It's something. 0.005. It's there. But I really, I think if we want to grow as human beings, and if we want to, so many of us, especially here that are a part of the shows with the Breakthrough Show Network, we want to change the world, and doing that, we have to change ourselves.
Mhm.
And if we want to do that, then we have to learn to have a little bit more trust in ourselves, believe in ourselves, have that confidence. And if you don't try, if you don't make that effort, if you don't cast the net to trust, we're not going to have that moving forward that so many of us want to see so desperately. So you gonna be sick in 2 weeks, Farron, or shall we continue this conversation?
Actually, I sweated through this one, so I think I'm okay. But the sweat has dried up, so I think I've got it all out of the way so far.
I love it. So in 2 weeks, on July 25th, Tuesday, 6 p.m., we're going to be talking about trust in
Others. And I don't trust others.
Trust in other people. And then August 8th, at 6 p.m., we will be talking about trusting again. What happens when that trust in ourselves or that trust in others is in a low percentage? How do we knock that back up? We might have some real life tips happening there. And then our final week, August 22nd, we will be talking about trust and faith. Going to be getting a little spiritual here on the show, which I think will be it'll be a great conversation. Great conversation. I'm really looking forward to that, because I feel like we mentioned a couple other words here tonight, hope and faith, which are definitely tied into that spiritual conversation. And I encourage you to come, even if you're like, listen, I'm out for the 4th week. I'm not religious. It's not about religion.
Not about religion at all.
I want you to join us anyway. Okay. He's out of the hot seat.
Thank you for recognizing that.
And I really want to thank Lori and Brittany and all of you that were hiding out. Listen, we had a lot of people watching during different points here that said nothing, but
why
we
ain't y'all
love you
say
so much.
something? Maybe we should open up the show for a guest who wants to talk about trust with us.
Yeah. Let us know if you'd like to pop on an episode with us. You can always send a message, Jessica at thebreakthroughshow.com. And I believe there's an email button somewhere at thebreakthroughshow.com as well. You can go check that out. Or I'll make sure to put both of our emails on the Beyond 2D page on thebreakthroughshownetwork.com as well. But I
want to say this real quick too.
Yeah.
For those that are going to ride it out with us in this rabbit hole, in your self-awareness, look at where you learned about trust. Look at what do you gauge up against, like where did you really learn about trust, and what are you using to gauge it up against when you look out in life? Not how you feel about it or think about it, but what is outside of you that you can go to and read about. Okay, and it'll put you back in relationship to trust in a powerful standpoint, a principle even. So I want to say that, and that might help you as these weeks come up. Find some space to find some freedom and listen to yourself around trust. So outside of yourself, what are you gauging your trust up against? Where did you learn it from? And that could be a very important tool to help start unravel some of these trust issues.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good conversation, my friend. I appreciate it.
Oh, we made it.
We made it.
I'm so glad I didn't call in sick today. I was going to call in sick.
We did it. It's great. And I'm excited about digging. And next week's gonna get a little spicy. little spicy
You
next
know,
week.
we
It
get to
always
talk
is as
about
we
other
talk
people.
about other people because now the control is out. That we have no control anymore. That's it. That's what
That's
it is.
it. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate your participation. We appreciate you watching or listening wherever you are in the world. I'm one of your hosts, Jessica Dugas, and this is
Farron Dozier, retired Army Sergeant First Class with some trust issues, y'all.
and we will see you in 2 weeks' time for another
Praise the
episode
Lord. 2 weeks.
of Beyond 2D. Bye,
Beyond
everybody.
2D.
Have a good night.
Peace.